Sweet Christmas.
Shout out to my birds.
Hello. This is Shay.
This is Corey.
And this is the Next Time On podcast, a podcast where two lifelong friends discuss all things amazing and all things vetted in popular culture. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, it's like if instead of forming one of the greatest comedy duos of all time and starting the best TV show ever made, Greg Davis and Alex Horn started the greatest comedy duo of all time and started a comic book podcast. Is that fair, Corey?
I think that's absolutely accurate.
Which one of us is Greg Davis? I have to know.
You, unfortunately.
Oh, fuck it. I'll take it. Once again, I set you up to say you're Greg Davis.
You're way too grumpy you're the grumpy one, so I think it has to go to you.
I think I've garnered an unfair reputation because I've
always been
forced to watch
grumpy.
some bad movies recently.
You were the grumpiest 3-year-old I've ever met in my life. And it's been like that ever since.
Oh my god. Get the fuck out of here. Alright, we're talking about Monsters by Barry Windsor-Smith today. Before we jump into all of that, because we've got a jam-packed discussion about a jam-packed book, get some points of business done. If you have not already, please go rate us 5 stars. Really helps us out. We're on all of your preferred podcast platforms, all over the fucking place. You can't hide from us. Also, if you haven't already, go check out the YouTube. Link is in the description below. If you're watching on the YouTube, don't forget to like and subscribe, all that good stuff. And you can follow us at Next Time On Pod on our social media platforms, and you can find all of our musings and podcasting and all that good shit at nexttimeon.net. Our next movie for Curse the Rewatch will be Ghost Rider, starring the one and only Nicolas Cage, and also, I forgot, Sam Elliott's in that movie. What's Sam Elliott in the movie?
Yeah, kind of.
Who is he? I don't remember the movie.
He's the cowboy Ghost Rider.
Oh, okay.
Which, if you're watching it, like when I was a kid, I'm like, I'd rather watch that movie that seemingly was a thing at some point, and they kind of just like let it go.
Yeah, I just finished listening to a couple of days ago. I finished listening to a career retrospective of Nicolas Cage podcast after it came out around The Unbearable Weight of Massive Talent, and they just did a redux of his career, and it is one of the strangest. Obviously, we knew this already, but just listening to it all, jam-packed into an hour and a half discussion about the trajectory of this guy's life, it's still insane to me that he has an Oscar, which...
It's so funny to me.
An Oscar for the guy who brought us Face Off and Ghost Rider is not a world that I think we should live in. This is the world we do live in, but what do you do? It is. But yeah, we'll be talking about that sometime next month.
Some people have never won Oscars that have definitely deserved them. And,
Yeah, I mean, I don't think he'll get another one. Let's just say that. I don't think Oscar number 2 is in the cards for Nicolas Cage anytime soon.
No, you think? Really? I'm surprised.
Well, like I said, we got a jam-packed book. So we might as well just jump right into it with part 1 of our discussion of Monsters by Barry Windsor-Smith, and that is, who is the author? So Barry Windsor-Smith, Corey and I were talking about this before, a comic book legend, Eisner, now officially Eisner Award winner, so
yes.
The timing of this was sort of accidental, mostly because I often just forget the Eisner Awards exist until they happen, and then I'm like, oh, great, cool. But this book just won, what it won best?
I think at least it was best comic creator or something. I can't remember exactly, but it was it won an award for this. I can't exactly remember.
So it won best graphic album, which I guess is by definition long form graphic novel, because the other nominees in that category were Ballad for Sophie, which I did not read, but I had heard about. Destroy All Monsters by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips, which I absolutely loved. Made my final list, I'm pretty sure. If not, it was a close cut. Meadow Lark, a coming of age crime story by Ethan Hawke and Greg Ruth, and then the winner, Monsters by Barry Windsor-Smith. And he is also an inductee. In 2008, he was an inductee into the Eisner Hall of Fame. most famous, I think, up until now. I think I would assume this is at this point his most famous book. It's hard to say because, like Corey and I were saying before this to each other, we actually haven't read any of his other stuff, which is a bit of an oversight on our. But I'm not really in the habit of going back and reading like old X-Men, and he has a very famous 1991 X-Men run called Weapon X, which I'm sure is great, but also probably you have to do a lot of LSD to enjoy.
I mean, I think like at least from this, it seems like he's the one who made that whole like story arc for Wolverine, so I guess that's probably why people list it.
Yeah.
As that.
Also, a lot of work on Conan the Barbarian and some Daredevil work as well. So that's what he's been known for. He's been writing comics since the 70s. This is his like magnum opus. Admittedly, it's 35 years in the making. Apparently, I always wonder what that actually means.
Yeah, seriously, I'm wondering about that as well.
Because like this is a massive book, but it's like 360 pages. So 10 pages a year is like George R.R. Martin pace. But like I said, I mean, like he was writing other comics, so I'm not painting him with the same brush as George R.R. Martin, who will never write a book again. So it's a little different story. But yeah, I don't really know if we have a ton more to say about Barry Windsor-Smith besides, as this is like kind of our only experience with him as a writer.
Yeah, no, I'm pretty interested to go back and see and look into. I don't know if he just did art or storytelling. I think I have read, but I don't think he wrote the not Star Wars, the X-Men run that he did. I think I read the Storm arc.
Okay.
That he did when she was depowered, but that was a long, long time ago. And I don't think he wrote that. I think he just drew it. Great art. I mean, obviously, fantastic artist as well as writer. But
yeah, I mean, and this book is the art in this is obviously very different than you will be seeing in his other Marvel work, mostly because this is like a solo effort. I mean, our script and art by him, all black and white, no coloring. I want to ask up top, do you think this book is better with a colorist?
I'm not sure because I think the intention is to be black and white. So yes. I don't think it necessarily. I think it's fine without color. I don't really think it makes it better or worse.
I think there are pages in this that are really effective in black and white, but I also think, and obviously, I say this a lot with like we talk about movies sometimes where I'm like, I just want to like hot swap in an actor in this role to see like theorize. I would love to see this book. This 365 page book in color, which I know is like not a small task.
No, not at all.
I kind of want to know what it's like, what the experience of reading it is like, because obviously, having read it all in black and white now twice, it's impossible to get the like imagery of this book out of my head, and it is very starkly illustrated. For those of you that haven't actually read it yet, this will be an interesting podcast experience for you, I think.
I always love that people like just like watch us just be like, yeah, is this fun for you? Hear us talk about a book.
It's also like it's a pretty. I was gonna say it's a complex book, but it's actually not that complex as far as like our book club books have gone. There are certainly some more dense or out there books we've done, but I just think the art in this is a pretty singular experience in a way where it is like no holds barred at times, and sort of doesn't hold the audience, the reader's hand, which I find really interesting.
That's true. Yes.
There are parts where characters are like just blend together on the page, and I have to go back and flip and be like, which character was wearing a hat at the beginning of this scene? I don't really remember who's.
I think he does do a good job of faces, so that I can actually, for the most part, tell.
The major characters are definitely distinctive.
Yes,
there are parts where there's like a bunch of Nazis or like a bunch of random people standing in a room where I like lose track of who's who. But I also think that's perfectly fine. The major characters certainly are quite distinctive, partially because there's like one woman, one child, one black man, and one white man are the main characters. So it's kind of hard to mix them up.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. But yeah, you have anything else to say about Barry Windsor-Smith and his, I think, illustrious legacy? I wonder, do you think he's like sort of semi-retired? He's in his 70s at this point. Like you said, he's been writing since the 70s. Do we see another book from him?
Maybe not on this scale. I mean, I gotta wonder how long this was in like production, to say the least. Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, it seems like you need like. I mean, it seems like this was his like what he wanted to do. So I wouldn't be surprised if this was the last one.
Yeah, I'm looking at the last published work before this was in the 2000, like the late 2000s, which is I guess why he gets inducted into the Eisner Hall of Fame in 2008. That's often an award you get when your career is like near the tail end or has tailed off. And then of course we are 14 years after that and he releases maybe his master work. I mean, I guess time will certainly tell on that. But yeah, I think a fascinating career. In a way, a really singular career. I don't think there's a lot of experience. Like we've talked about some legendary writers on here, and then of course some first-time writers. We talked about N.K. Jemisin last month, who
was kind of
first-time comic book writer at least.
Yeah, and she's like fine at it.
Has she written another comic book yet? I haven't.
If she has, I haven't noticed. I don't think so. I can't imagine she would just do a casual one after this. I feel like you kind of like. I don't know. At least to me, it seems like it would be remiss of DC not to be like, hey, so like, come do another one of those for us.
Yeah, and I would imagine, mostly because she's only doing like half of the, like she doesn't have to do the art and everything, that it's got to be a less stressful or time-consuming experience than writing a book, like a novel.
Yeah.
Or,
no, absolutely.
Or
yeah.
Short stories. Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about what exactly is Monsters. What is this book?
Sorry for yawning so much, guys.
We are deep in the day and deep in the week. It's been a long
it's
one.
been a weird week for both of us.
Yeah. So first up is why did we choose Monsters?
Jay, this was your pick.
Well, I sort of chose Monsters. I already said this really, but I chose Monsters. We did N.K. Jemisin, your number one book from last year, Far Sector. We did that last month, or probably like 3 months ago at this point. I don't even really remember. But that was the last book club. And I was like, it'd be cool to talk about Monsters, which was my number one book from last year. And not just like my number. There's every once in a while, there's like a book that really like hits me. A couple books a year will do that, or sometimes it's just the one. Last year, I really loved Dead Dog's Bite as well, but I think those were the two books that were real standouts. I think Monsters, since maybe Sabrina, or I guess like Gideon Falls, but that's different because Gideon Falls is like so spread out. It was this experience over the course of 3 years that it's hard to really compare it to the experience of reading like Sabrina's or My Favorite Thing is Monsters, or even Jason Lute's Berlin, which was very reminiscent of this book. Most probably not in like a really interesting and intelligent way, but both because they're just like massive books that are in black and white. It's, I don't know, people probably can't see, people who watch the YouTube video can't really see it, but it's sitting back on my shelf and it's thick as fuck. Berlin. I think it's the only book I own that's bigger than this, which is
Jesus Christ. I mean, I read it digital. Jesus. I mean, I get it. It's like what, 400 pages, 400 plus pages. Some stupid. It's a lot.
Yeah, and so I have a digital version of it, obviously, that I got for us to do show pages on the pod and everything, but I still read it in hardback form. One, because I spent whatever I spent on this book, I wanted to read it, but it is like it's like kind of difficult, like physically to read. I didn't know how.
I was gonna ask. I'm like, I feel like that might be difficult. Like that's the reason I stopped buying omnibuses, because I'm like, these are cool looking, but like if you ever sit down and read one of them, it fucking hurts.
Well, you also have to like. Especially for this, like I'm reading and I have to take notes at the same time. So normally my setup is like I have my tablet or usually like a tiny comic book and then my laptop on my lap, or like I just sit next to me on the couch or something. And this, I'm like, you can't have the laptop on your lap and this massive book. So it's just like it was a real physical experience reading this book. But yeah, I mean, that's really the reason. And it just happened. We got lucky that it happened to be in the news this week with it winning the Eisner Award. So that was a lucky coincidence. Obviously, then we do, of course, our next question about what the book is. Is any pre-information? Not really. I mean,
Nope.
Neither of us even came into this with much knowledge about the author. There's certainly no backstory. This doesn't exist in like the Fantagraphic canon, although Fantagraphic canon is something I'm very much in for. So if you guys want to start oh my God, what's the Image book that's we were just talking about it, the superhero crossover, yeah. If you want to start a Fantagraphic, like a crossover style Fantagraphic book, I'm all about it.
No.
No, you wouldn't read that?
Well, I mean, like, what would that be?
Well, we'd obviously have Elias in there.
Uh-huh.
Can't remember. Can't really think of any other like legendary Fantagraphic characters. The girl from Persepolis.
Okay.
Persepolis.
We can get
Love and
Scrooge
Rockets girl.
Scrooge McDuck.
Mickey Mouse. They have the rights to Mickey Mouse. A lot of weird stuff going on in Fantagraphic. I love their shit though. I'm not gonna lie. But yeah,
Fantagraphics is 100% Shay is a comic book fan. It makes sense.
I think technically I have more drawn and quarterly stuff if I'm being honest.
It's very funny how we sit on the opposite ends of the spectrum of like comic books that we like regularly go to.
I like superhero books, but
that's like more. Well, I guess it's funny. Like in recent days, I don't find myself reading as much superhero stuff just because it's not as written anymore.
Yeah, I think that's why I am like a great superhero book. Obviously, people who've listened to this podcast know we're both super in on. My difficulty with the big two is that it feels like I have to shovel through more shit than I do with like even Image, for example, which I think if I'm just totaling up the number of books I read more Image books than anything else by a long shot. And I just find that it's more likely that an Image book will be good when I pick it up than a DC and a Marvel book. Now, that might be because of preference or because of quality. I don't know. I can't really say which, but I certainly get more enjoyment out of independent comics than superhero comics at large at the moment. Which,
yeah, I mean, I think it's like I think like at this point I'm like it's just like specific authors are writing them.
Yeah,
that's what I like. Look for like Chip Zdarsky's doing a superhero book. I'm picking that up, but
well, like for example, this week Al Ewing just dropped a Ant-Man book that I'm excited for. I
didn't even know that.
Ant-Man #1, yeah, it came out. We're recording this on a Wednesday. It came out today.
But yeah, like authors, like some authors just like really thrive in it. Like I think Al Ewing, for example, where it's like I don't know if I've like super enjoyed a lot of his like independent stuff, but I think his Hulk run and like his Ultimates run is just so fucking good.
Yeah. But
yeah.
also, it makes sense. We've talked about this before. This is obviously an unrelated conversation, but like the business, DC Comics and Marvel Comics are only sort of in the comic book business. They're in the TV and movie IP creation business. It was just officially announced, although we basically knew this was coming for a while, that Hickman's Secret Wars comic is coming to theaters.
Well, actually, technically, Secret Wars was a comic back in the 80s.
Yeah, but I would imagine this is.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we've already seen incursions, and I think like we're definitely leading in towards that.
But even like 2015, when we were talking about Secret Wars, the Hickman run, we were like, well, this is like,
I think
MCU fodder.
Yeah, well,
and it was good. It's good.
I think to me, I saw someone have a very interesting, not a point about this, but like kind of like an observation where it's just like I wish that Marvel ended with Secret Wars, and it's funny. It was like because I thought it was a really good point. So it was like this was a very good ending to like basically what was 60 years worth of comics.
Yeah.
And I get the whole like thing. I do like the fact that Marvel has a continuous storyline. It's the only thing that still does it without a reboot. But I think it would have been a very good idea just to do like a hard reboot right then.
Yeah.
And then like do a better version than the New 52 basically. And I think that was a great opportunity for them to do it. And they just unfortunately, not unfortunately, but I think there was a time to kind of clean a lot of it up.
Yeah. I think that's a big part of why I really connect with books like Monsters.
That's fair.
Or Sabrina, or any number of, or Dead Dog's Bite. A book that was serialized but has this beginning and end, and feels like there's stakes. I mean, we make jokes a lot about like when a superhero dies, like a Marvel or DC superhero dies. It's like, this is sad, but they'll be back in like a week or two, and that's just simply not the case for. I mean, the vast number of people that die in this book.
A lot of people.
Yeah. Elias will not be coming back in Monsters 2.
Joke's on you. He'll be back as a ghost.
Yeah, we will be talking about the ending of this book, which I have some questions and some thoughts on. But let's do a very quick plot summary of this book.
Okay.
I got it written down. Don't worry. I got key events to know.
I was going to be like, okay, it's like there's a lot.
Well, it's a lot, and it's also told in a very non-linear fashion. We start in the 40s and jump forward to the 60s and back and forth. But really, there's only sort of like two major storylines. There's during World War II, or during the end of World War II, and then in the 60s. And those two storylines span about 3 to 4 years each. But we're sort of jumping back and forth between characters there. But I'll run down the key events I have listed here. So we have Bobby gets recruited by Elias into the Prometheus program, which at the time we don't really know what's going on. But the fact that they're recruiting a homeless man with no social security number, and they're very excited that he doesn't seem to like have all of his wits about him, suggests that this is not a program for the betterment of mankind. Then we get Elias struggling with his basically betrayal of this young boy, to the point at which he leaves his family to rescue Bobby and saves him from Prometheus, and in the process of doing that is killed. We jump forward a year later, and Bobby has been, I suppose, on the run throughout America for this past year, and Major Roth has tracked down, the U.S. military has tracked down Bobby, and is
I was unclear how it was an entire year. Well, I was surprised it was an entire year.
That seemed like because the year is not really important to the story, and that seems like a long time for this giant, like mentally stunted man-child to have evaded the U.S. military. That was odd. I think it's supposed to be the symmetry of like to get us to Thanksgiving again is the idea there, I imagine. But I do think the logistics of that are unlikely, let's say, to say the least. But then once we've tracked down Bobby and he's like sort of cornered in his house, we start to get the majority of the book exists in these flashbacks, or this like sort of cyclical rotating throughout time. So we get a flashback to Bobby's father returning from World War II, Tom Bailey, and then over the course of his, like, he gets back and he's like unrecognizable to his wife Janet and his son, and he gets more and more aggressive and abusive over time, to the point at which he beats Bobby to the and like maims him, like takes out his left eye, and then we see that this character Jack Powell, who when we first meet him as a police officer, but that's in the late 40s, we flash back to the early 40s, and he is and what do we decide he is here? He's like a handler for the...
Yeah, I'm just gonna say handler. Like, I don't like, it seems like he was like the go-between as like a weird cover-up.
There's a lot of jokes, quote unquote jokes at his expense, about him being a more senior officer in the military, which makes me think he's like very low ranked. But he is somebody with military association that is like sent out to liaise with military wives, and I suppose also military widows. They form a romance that's mostly unrequited. They kiss, and then he gets fired for kissing her, and then that's why we find out he becomes a police officer. Then we jump forward to the Thanksgiving after Tom Bailey's return, in which he finally snaps and kills his wife, her brother her brother, and then her sister-in-law. And just before he can kill Bobby Jack comes to the house and kills him. So we have Bobby's entire family dies this horrific Thanksgiving, which we find out later has been creatively classified by the media as the Thanksgiving Massacre. And then,
that's okay. That makes sense now. I remember. I didn't read the fine print of the Thanksgiving Massacre, but no, that ties back together.
Not to undersell the the Bailey family's tragedy, but I'm not sure you can call 4 people the Thanksgiving massacre, but whatever.
How many people do you need a massacre for?
Isn't the Valentine's Day massacre like a lot? It's like
I have no idea.
It's like 20 plus, isn't it?
That feels like it's a massacre. Time to Google what is a massacre. I probably shouldn't.
It's only
Google
7. That. I guess I over exaggerated that in my head, but more than 4. And then we flash back once again further into the past, where we find out where the like origins of the Prometheus program that Bobby was implemented into. We discover Friedrich, who is, we find out later when we met earlier as Colonel Friedrich. We see him with his Nazi doctors, and they're in the closing days of World War II, where they are planning their escape from Germany, and how, or some of them are not planning to escape, they're planning to die for the cause. But then we see Friedrich betray all of his comrades and escapes to America to become rich and powerful, as many Nazis did. Never forget that.
No.
And finally, we
had to go to the moon. I don't understand what you don't understand.
Yeah, listen. I get why we did it. I don't approve of why we did it. I also think this book is a little weird, because I don't even think when we like brought over a bunch of Nazis and like forgot all their war crimes and shit so that they could teach us about space travel, that we made them colonels in the military. I think that was a bit like the fact this guy is a colonel is like probably not realistic,
well, they say, I mean, I think he says he lies in the end. He like basically says that like the way that it happened, that like he was captured by the Nazis.
Right, but I think even then.
Yeah, it's weird how this person became a colonel. I'm
not going to pretend to be like a U.S. military expert. I don't think you can become a colonel without like being a U.S. born citizen.
I don't know if that's true, but I think it definitely requires like ROTC or like some kind of like education. I don't fucking know. It's fucking weird.
Yeah, either way. So then we flash back forward again to where we left Bobby, who has gone home to his childhood home. Jack finds him there, and we learn that Bobby is dying. The failed Prometheus procedure has given him cancer, and then we get a quite neat, which again, I want to talk about this ending. We get this very neat ending where Elias and Nina reunite in like the spiritual world with Jack, who also dies in his attempt to rescue Bobby. And they send Jack, Bobby, and Janet to heaven, for lack of a better word, where they live in their home together happily ever after, I think, is the implication here.
Well, they're dead, so you know.
Okay, sorry. I don't know what you call it when it's the afterlife.
I don't know either.
But that's basically, I mean, obviously I skipped over some minor detail, but that is essentially the plot of Monsters, which the plot of this book is, I think, less interesting than the themes that it explores, which should we just jump right into that, Corey? What we think this book is exploring, or did I miss any plot points that?
No, I mean, there's a lot. I mean, there's so much that happens in this that it's like, I guess it's kind of hard to be like, the plot isn't what's super important, I guess.
Yeah. That's why I actually think for a book that's as just literally as long as this, and as I think as well written as this is, it is deceptively simple. Now it does, it does the time, like overlapping timelines and everything, and cycling back and forth through time. I think it does that. I think Windsor-Smith does that in an effective way, that it doesn't confuse me or I lose track of the plot.
Yeah,
but other than that, it's a pretty straightforward plot. You have 3-ish main characters that go on quite similar journeys. And then in the middle we have his mother, who normally I'm not for the internal monologue in comic books. I think the diary thing I'd find it really lazy, but I think it's used really effectively here, and we get to see this internal nature of her character in a way that
unfortunate. the unfortunate descent because of her horrible husband.
Well, also like,
She's a
well, I have some questions about the diary too that I guess we'll save for later. But so themes of this book, Corey, you have any you want to jump in with first before I go?
I mean, I kind of think like the general theme to me, at least, was like kind of the whole. That's not a good way to. I'm trying to think of the best way to put it, but it seems like the whole like people making monsters, I guess, basically, and it's like not necessarily. I don't think the book is monsters. It's not about Bailey or like what the fuck ever his name is. It's more about it's not about Bobby. I think it's more about the people involved in this process to create this said monster.
Yeah. Well, I think the monsters plural is quite intentional.
Yeah.
And obviously Bobby's like distorted visage after he goes to the Prometheus program is the cover of the book. I think it's actually taken straight from that panel where they like cart him out like he's a circus freak, literally.
Yeah.
And those two.
Well, okay, yeah. What was going on with those guys? Sorry, maybe I shouldn't ask that question right now, but I was. I
actually don't. I think they're like supposed to be like a buffoonish comic relief, but in a very insidious, evil way.
Yeah, and I was just like, it's like the fuck's going.
Because they're like, I think everyone is laughing at how much of a failure this program was, except for Friedrich and Roth, the two guys who were like in charge of it and most on the line for its success. But all the privates find it quite funny that it's failed. And like this guy like released a stench that was so toxic it made people shit their pants, which was insane detail.
Yeah, that was a bit of like comic relief because he's just like, "Did you shit your pants?" And he's like, "Well, yeah, I shat my pants." And it's just like such a weird moment. I'm like,
I mean,
okay.
For a book that's as like bleak and dark as this book is at times, I actually think Windsor-Smith has a real knack for some very funny lines in here. I have some of them listed that we'll get to later. But I actually think there are some. That moment I don't think is supposed to be comic relief, even though those guys are all laughing.
I think we're supposed to feel sad for it, but I'm just like, who are these people?
Yeah, and they're not really acting like people would, but that happens a lot in this book, and it's I like you said, like the monsters is in a lot of ways not about Bobby, but of course, obviously, he becomes a monster in a way. But I think the main thesis of this book, and it stuck out to me even more on second reading because of how like parallel a lot of these stories are and the way they end in these tragic ways, and the mistakes everybody makes are sort of the same throughout their time in the story, is that it is I think a charitable reading of it is that war creates monsters, and I think a less charitable and a reading I'm more inclined to believe is Windsor-Smith's intention here is that America creates monsters, and like this idea of this like false American dream. I don't think it's not unintentional at all that the demise of at the center of the story is like this perfect American family, like loving wife and mother, loving wife and husband and their son living in suburbia America, and he goes off to fight for his country, and he comes back and like quite literally like evil descends on their house. Like he brings back the weight of war with him, and it leads to literally everyone's death. I don't think. I mean, his mother is a much more interesting character than I think a lot of writers would have succeeded at. I think she would have, in other writers' hands, would have been quite a boring, two-dimensional, like idyllic woman character. But the fact that she's just like a beautiful white lady who's the only good person in this book is like not an accident, obviously.
Yeah. But even though she still isn't perfect by any.
No, what are you referring to?
Talking about the mother?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like she does hit. She does
hit. Yeah, there is the moment where it all. I mean, that's like, and then immediately is like karmically punished. Like up until that point is like sort of perfect as a character, and quite literally, Elias sees her as an angel in his memories of her. and then she loses it in this like the one of the worst moments of her life, and then is immediately killed. Like next page is when everyone dies in that scene. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, I hadn't thought about that. But yeah, I think so much of this is like Bobby is like the literal example of what this story is about. Is like the military or the America or the world even takes in innocence and spits out evil. So I think that's like, if I was the thesis of this book, I think is that's what I would go with.
I think that's very, yeah. I think it's also just like very, we can see the path into where we lead, basically, with the whole like just, it's like how many of these horrible people's contributing actions basically just can like, at what point it basically just explodes and becomes what ends up happening to Bobby.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's also
not.
He starts with that scene in the shed, and
it doesn't
his
also
mother yelling at Tom, "You're a monster."
Yeah. It also is like not really helpful for me when I'm reading this book. I keep reading the father in Hank Hill's voice just because every time he curses at Bobby, and it really takes you out of the scene, Shay, if you're doing that.
I don't have Hank Hill's voice floating around in my head, to be honest with you.
I don't either. I don't even know what the fuck is coming from.
I think the last time I watched King of the Hill might have been like last millennia. I don't even know.
People love that show.
Yeah, I don't know. Anything else to say generally about this book? We'll take a.
I really enjoyed it. Yeah, no, I enjoyed it. I thought I was I think it's like it took me a second to get on the ride, but as soon as I figured out what the book was going to be, because I feel like when you're first reading this book, I'm like, oh, it's going to be about this experiment. Oh no, it's about this guy and his family. Oh no, it's about this. And I think it took me until after the escape from the compound for me to finally understand what this book is really, what it is.
Yeah, it's an epic in the most literal sense of the word. There is 4 or 5 major storylines. I mean, like you said, in the opening 40 pages of this book, we change who I think the reader changes who they think the main character is 2 to 3 times, and then you're still not even right. Like in a lot of ways, it is structured like the epics of old or modern epics, like Song of Ice and Fire, where you're shuffling through many different point of view characters up until the end. Yeah.
But no, nothing else generally to say for me.
Yeah, we'll take a quick break and then we'll come back and talk about some specific things we liked and didn't like so much about this book.
Where in the shit do you think you're going?
Out.
Out? Oh, no, you don't. No, we're gonna stay in here and you're gonna tell me exactly what's going on with you and that thing in the attic.
That thing. It's a girl.
You're in love with her, aren't you?
Yes.
Admit it.
I just said yes.
I knew it! It's never gonna work out. No, she's too old for you, and you're ugly. She's gonna leave you. You know that, don't you? So, here's what's gonna happen, you little shit. You're gonna put this on, okay? You're gonna forget about that disgusting Jewy cow up there, and you're gonna come back to me where you belong. Right? Put it on. And then we're gonna pretend none of this ever happened. You got it? Heil me? Come on, for old time's sake. Heil me, little man.
No.
Heil me. Come
No.
on, a little high, just a little higher, please.
Fuck off, Hitler.
And we're back.
What's up?
All right. Some specific points about monsters that we loved and didn't love. Let's start with points of criticism. I'll just go first, and if you got any, just feel free.
I'll throw them in. Yeah.
I think the weakest part of this book. It's slow to start at the beginning, but I think a lot of that really pays off in the end. So in the totality of it, I'm not concerned about the opening 50 pages, like you said. Up until the escape from Prometheus with Bobby, it's a lot of character setup, but because of the cyclical nature of the storytelling and the timelines and everything, we overlap on parts of the opening of the book that I think are really pay off and are worthwhile in the end. I think the weakest part of the book, and I think could have easily been cut, is the love story between Jack and Janet.
I agree.
I'm not only am I not sure like Windsor-Smith does like a great job of writing a convincing love story, which is a pretty general comic book problem. You read into that all you want, people.
Don't think about it too hard.
I think that often comes up in comic books when we talk about, but I'm also not even sure it makes a lot of sense. Like I'm a bit confused.
Yeah. It's like his like, I mean, that entire little plot line there with her and, I just kind of am confused. I was like, about like, it's like, okay, he's the cop, but he's also this guy. But why is he also this guy? What's going on? And I think I had a couple of those.
Yeah, and I think the like amorphous nature of his role in the military is sort of indicative of the slapdash nature of that section of the book. And it is ultimately like a small section, but because of the ending, which I think we'll get to in a second, it ends up being a very major part. I will say this, in the relation to that, I do like that Janet has this outlet for, like, I don't know, her like affections in a way. Like her husband at this point, when she is like fully invested in Jack, has like essentially abandoned her. Like he hasn't come back yet, but he is no longer like writing letters to her from Germany. And because of the timeline, I think we figure out this is because it's after he has been caught eating people. So like
we've all been there.
Is in jail somewhere. Interestingly, we don't actually find out how the fuck he got out. There's like a line early in the book from Elias that like they eventually just gave him a medal and released him. But why did they do that? We don't ever really find that out. I'm
guessing it's more like it would be worse if this came to light, so let's all pretend like it didn't happen kind of mentality.
I feel like the military could just like keep people locked inside forever without it coming out. I don't know if that's a real danger for them.
All right, listen. The military in this book act by weird rules. I think that might be a point of criticism. The rules of this military is very slapdash.
Yeah, I mean, I wonder if like 1960s and 1950s the U.S. military was less structured than it is now. I mean, they're coming off of two massive wars, soon to be in another one in 1965 is like when does the Vietnam War start?
I don't remember.
Not that long after that. So we're still sort of leaving. Oh no. Sorry, we're in the middle of the Vietnam War. I forgot the Vietnam War is like 20 fucking years. Insane that we did that. Not we.
Good.
I don't want any association with that.
No, we did not, Chad.
But yeah, I think that part is the only part of the book that I would like cut. Is there any other section that you think is not effective?
I don't. I mean, I guess it's more of like just doubling down that this guy's an asshole, but the whole like preacher scene that kind of pops up. It's a really short scene. In the
1965 timeline where they're chasing down Bobby. Yeah.
I'm like, what the fuck is this?
I think it's just it is supposed to like just solidify that Major Roth is evil. And Roth in particular is like this, I think in particular this stand-in for he's like a avatar for the US military, because Friedrich we obviously get more of a character arc from. We go back and we explore his motivation and even see his origin story, but Roth is like a non-character and then slowly walks to his death in a swamp to end his
that was a weird one. who had a much more unceremonious death, him or the guy from Stranger Things season 4?
Talk about Eddie?
No, the Christian youth basketball, like the basketball captain.
Definitely Major Roth. I don't even know what I'm thinking. At least the basketball youth pastor or whatever the fuck he was. At least he got like cut in half by the.
Yeah, that was pretty. That fucking.
It was this guy like literally slowly walks to death in a swamp and dies.
Yeah, what the fuck was up with that? I'm like, okay, he's dead.
I think the implication is that I think you're supposed to think that it's not entirely without effect by Elias. I think it's supposed to be like Elias's like effect is doing some of his astral projection, whatever the fuck we're calling it in this, to make him walk himself slowly to death. All right. I think. Do you want to talk about the ending now?
Yeah, why not?
Other points. So, I think these two things are related, obviously, because the ending is really only satisfying if you believe in the Jack, Janet, Bobby, happy family love story.
Yeah, I guess that's probably why they included Jack. I guess I think they must have given him a reason instead of like him just being like a good cop guy, ACAB. But like I think that's kind of like the whole like they wanted to give him a bit more of like a
Sorry,
I
was really slow on the pickup there. My bad.
A real like, and I'm the fucking one who's tired. And the just to kind of give him like a kind of like reason to kind of come back around and be like, okay, this makes sense. This would be his happy ending, in a sense.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's like I don't know. I just didn't really like. I like that they seem very charming together, Jack and Janet. I just never was. I was just constantly confused about what their roles were to each other in a sense of like. How, like, why is it against the rules? Like, why is he talking to her in the first? Like, a lot of questions about it, and I'm like, I don't.
And maybe you know what? Maybe we're being greedy in this nearly 400-page book. Maybe
I
there
am
wasn't
being
space
greedy
to like really suss out the love story between these two people. But if you're gonna end it, if that's gonna be your last page, I gotta believe these two people should like live in eternity together, which is what it seems like is how the book ends. And I just don't buy it.
Yeah, I agree.
And I also think not just because of like the content of the ending, I don't know, and I understand the implication. I've never written anything, obviously, even like a tenth as good as this, or spent 35 years on anything because I'm not even 35 years old. But I sort of get the implication. Not yet. Don't do that to me. I get the implication if you spent almost half your life on something to want to end it neatly in a way that sort of ties up all the endings. But I don't know if this book not only needed that, I don't know if it's an effective ending to this book. Does that make sense? For it to be so clean.
It's very clean again. I also agree. I think it was I guess they wanted to like end it in a very like the story's so dark. It's like you do want a happy ending for these people.
Yeah, even like Roth's, like we're just joking about Roth's death, but it's just like, oh, one of our big bads like coincidentally and like literally coincidentally dies.
Yeah, honestly, it's like So I'm like, yeah, that's the thing with Roth too. I'm just like very much. I'm like, I kind of wanted him to suffer some more.
Yeah,
or something. Don't exactly know suffer is the right word, but
well, I mean like repent or pay or something. And it's like his last act on Earth, and this is obviously very fitting, is to like leave a soldier dying under a car. Now, obviously, that soldier did just try to kill him, but
did he?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That scene where he like tips the car down the ravine. I'm trying to remember what the last line he says before he does it. It's something like, "I got to do this for everybody" or something. Like the implication is that he did that on purpose to kill them both, and then of course did it. Which is like, if you're in the military, aren't you driving around with a gun? Just shoot the guy.
Yeah, I mean, if we're gonna go that way, why don't you just
But
I'm gonna go find that page.
Yeah, unless you have other points of criticism, I don't.
No, really... I don't. I think this is a really. I mean, these are little nitpicks, honestly.
Yeah,
that I'm having.
Yes, I think very small stuff. But yeah, we can move on to we always want to get the bad, the criticism out of the way. But I think those are two, like you said, Corey, pretty minor parts of this ultimately, like, I think incredibly successful story. But let's move on to our favorite parts. We'll start with our art and pages in particular. Now, this book, I do like the art. Oh, actually, I don't think we talked about it. Do you like the art in this?
Yeah, I think it works for this style. It's not my particular favorite type of art style, but I think it works very effectively.
Yeah, I think you're right. With the story, it's fitting, but it doesn't. The thing with art's like, and this is I think for the first time in a while, my shortest collection of pages and panels that to talk about, because with this sort of art style, at least for me, and I think there's probably a type of person that really appreciates this kind of art way better than I can or do. I never have that experience where I like turn the page and I'm like wowed. Like we talked about with Far Sector, there would be pages where you would turn and it would be like the dancing scene from Far Sector. Double page, like they're two spinning around each other is like an experience you're just not going to get with Monsters. But I do have some pages I picked out, and if you got any you want to throw in there, Corey, go for it. So first up now, the reminder, these are artistically impressive, not necessarily like beautiful to look at. So the first one I picked out is this scene on page 18, where we get this glimpse of when Elias is talking to Friedrich in his office. We get this glimpse of the horrors going on at Prometheus. And I think this is the first time it really kicks in, at least for me, but I think this is the moment for most readers where they will have realized, that this book is about true evil, like true depravity.
I mean, also the page after that's also really well done. It's just
the full page of the World War II and like Hitler and Nazi imagery. Yeah, very effective. And I think that scene in particular is one of my favorite scenes because it is this very casual introduction to true evil in the form of Friedrich, where you're like, where this guy even one of my favorite lines in this book is the offhand line where he's like, "Many of my friends came back from Germany and live among you now." You're like, cool.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, I actually think Friedrich's character is one of my favorite in the book, and favorite in that well written, not favorite in that I enjoy his existence.
Yeah, I bet you. Yeah, I bet.
Listen, if people listen to this podcast, I knew he would. Nazi, it's too late for me now.
Oh, that's fine. That's it is what it is. That's find your beach or whatever.
What does that mean in this situation?
I don't know, man. Keep it going.
Next up is a sort of a series of pages. I've got page 69 through 77. One of the few for a book about war. Not many action sequences, and that's obviously intentional. This is not like a Saving Private Ryan war story. It's just more.
We don't actually see. I don't think we see. Well, actually, we do see some war.
We see the after effects of war. We see like the war has been won, and the Americans are like traipsing across Germany, liberating and pillaging the country. But the action sequence we have on page 69 through like 70, 75 or something like that, where Elias is getting chased down by I guess one of Roth's cohorts. I think it's just very effective, really tense action sequences, which up until this point, I didn't think the book was going to really give us any of that. And I just really found that really exciting. And I think in particular, that scene, that shot, that panel where Elias is looking in the eyes of the guy chasing him down, he's like wearing like a club shirt. It's really funny to me.
I love the way that they do sunglasses in this. Also, just a little thing. Cars too. It looks really cool.
Yeah, I tried to track down an interview with Windsor-Smith where he talked about some of his writing, his artistic process, and how it's improved over the years. But I would love to like just how he approaches a page like this. Like, it's so much.
It's clean,
empty space, like way out, like so he uses the void really effectively.
Kind of like Friday.
Yeah. Which is why I still really want to see this in color. I know it's like a little bit of blasphemy, but I kind of want to know what it would look like.
I do know what you mean. I think it also, to me, like without the color, it definitely gives it the whole like, ooh, spooky monster movie kind of like vibe that it's like kind of, and at least I get that whole like 60s like monster movie.
Yeah, I also think there's a chance that it's like the Psycho experience where if we have to see Bobby in color, it's like maybe too awful. Like he's he's like too that, and like the looking like Prometheus when we get there and all that stuff. I think maybe there's a chance that it's an experience that's not pleasant for the viewer, the reader. I got two more quick ones. So when Bobby after the helicopter crash, when they've cornered Bobby after a year on the run, and he's saving the pilots from the burning wreckage, although turns out not in time, but attempting to save the pilots. I just think those panels are just genuinely beautiful. I think the way he does fire and smoke in this book is my favorite parts. And actually the last one I have, or the last two I have, are sort of the same thing. So there's the scene in the midst of one of my least favorite part of the book. We've got the scene where Janet is in the, what do they call it? The luncheon?
I think that's what they called it. That weird. What was that about?
Well, I don't know. I think it was just supposed to like tell us that Janet's really beautiful and everyone's jealous of her.
God, she's so hot. Everyone's so jealous of my hot.
I otherwise
also,
I don't really know why I was there.
Did she also sorry, this is a bit of an offhand, but did she sleep with the mailman?
I didn't want to get there, but we can. Let me just show the page really quick because it's actually right. It's right there. There's different smoking section. I got my pages confused, but instead of the smoking section where they're in the luncheon, this is when she's over with Eileen and page 162. And I just really love the way the smoke, it's like just pitch black in this room. And also probably how like a lot of 1940s and 50s houses looked with people just smoking a chimney indoors with their kids playing on the couch next to them.
Listen, it builds character.
Builds cancer is what it builds.
Cancer, character, same difference.
But actually, if you're watching the YouTube video, which I will plug again because we got some nice videos.
Watch the YouTube video.
On page 161 before that was the first instance of that line where Mr. Gibbs, the mailman, stopped by to say hello this morning. We talked and talked, and then underneath it is a they're having sex like in the landing with the door open. Which
pretty wild.
And this comes back again when Tom is having his breakdown in Prometheus in Germany, when he's picturing these like dead Nazi soldiers having sex with his wife on the table. He also pictures this again. Now, my read of this is that it did not happen. Is that she did not have sex with the mailman.
I was like, I didn't. I mean, it shouldn't really seem like the type to have sex with the mailman, but I just really couldn't tell.
It also betrays her character. Like, has this real emotional connection with Jack. We're supposed to believe she has a real emotional connection with Jack, and then goes to hasn't spoken to her husband in years. And goes to this luncheon with him, and then all she does is kiss him. But the mailman comes by and has sex with her. It's just not a bye. But what I read from that is I wonder, and I ask you this here is Tom reading her diary, and this is like his vision of what that means? Because we get again when he's having the breakdown in Germany, we get other passages from the diary that are seemingly innocent interspersed with images of her cheating on him. Yeah.
I was kind of thinking the same thing. I was wondering if they were actually going to like come out and show that he was reading her diary or just I don't know. It's I feel like something you wouldn't really want to leave up to your audience to interpret or not, but I'm not sure.
Yeah. I mean, cuz that page it's a shot of him after coming home late at night covered in blood and drunk, reading a newspaper headline about the mailman being beaten senseless. Next panel is this, I imagined instance of his wife having sex with the mailman. And the question is, does this exist in his head? And like, how much of it is in his head? Is this diary entry even real? Because it's one of the only clips we get from her diary that aren't like directly attributed to her. Like normally they look like literally she's on the page with her pen and paper there next to these diary entries. It's one of the only ones that's devoid of the.
I think you're right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that must be that probably was his intent, especially if you're losing the consistency with it. And that makes sense though. Like I mean, I don't really think what we're presented to as her characters doesn't really seem like was her escapism for this.
Yeah, and also it doesn't really track.
Yeah.
And that's the whole point, right? Is that Tom
Yeah.
has lost it in a way that he's like devoid of. He's like he's so far removed from reality at this point that he will believe his wife that all she's done is like desperately wait for him to return from the war.
Like an asshole.
Yeah, and then comes back and is like awful to her and their child, and he still is like, well, she must be sleeping around.
Must be.
Yeah, I don't know. I have one more quick panel that I'll just throw up for the YouTube viewers. Page 214 and 215 when this is the moment that she kisses Jack and gets on her bus. I just think that shot of her bus leaving is really the streaks and the smoke and like the sort of like this fading out into sort of like into memory in a way. I think that's really beautifully done.
It was.
But let's move on to favorite moments and scenes. I got a lot. Won't do all of them, mostly for time and also because we've touched on a few. We touched on many of them before. So I will start at the top. Corey, if you got any, like I said, if you got any, just
I'll let you know.
jump on.
You've been kind of pretty. You're doing a great job, buddy.
Weirdly condescending, but thanks.
I'm not being condescending. You're being condescending.
All right, I'll touch on my favorite. We already did one of my favorites, which I won't go back to again and show on screen. But I think the opening of this book is really effective. That
Opening of
scene-
this book is fucking rough.
Yeah, but I think that's like not only
You
just
need it.
the scene we get. Yes, we need it, especially because it gets called back to over and over again. But I think the lettering in that is so drastically different from the rest of the book. He's like literally speaking. I guess it's German. It's hard to tell with the blocking of the letters.
I think it's supposed to be German though, because he keeps like coming back in and out of it. You know.
Yeah. But the first one, my official nominations here is page 40 when we get the the reveal of why Elias has been shuffling through his comic book collection for the past 20 or so pages. Like basically the storyline up at this point has been Elias betrays a dumb boy.
Yeah.
sends him off to get killed, and then basically frame one goes home and is like, I fucked up, guys, really guilty about this.
Yeah, but it's also it's like, because I mean, it's also like, yeah, you didn't have to do that.
No, and I understand that it gets like the whole storyline underway and whatever. I don't really get why he did it. It's not like, was he looking for approval from these people that obviously hate him? Maybe. But,
Maybe.
He immediately goes home, and in his guilt, we see him like sifting through all of his comic book collection, including some. I think there's like a X-Men Easter egg in there.
Which one are we talking about?
Just like I think we see like an X-Men cover that.
Oh, gotcha. Oh yeah, no, there was a Batman one too.
Yeah, that Windsor-Smith himself wrote. But
Oh yeah.
then we get on page 40 why he's been doing this, because it's not actually clear until this point as to what the hell he's been up to, and he's finally explaining to Bessie, his wife, what he's been doing. I think it's just a really cool reveal, and like as the beginning of this like sort of reverse storytelling that Windsor-Smith employs throughout the book, where you get the reveal before you get the setup in a lot of ways, which I think is really, really well done. Like even the opening sequence, we see that's when we find out, if you could have blinked and missed it, but that's when we find out that that's when Bobby lost his eye. But then of course that comes back over and over again. Obviously the moment where we see Bobby for the first time is
like the way in the you mean in the like
post
the birthday?
Prometheus.
Yeah. That was pretty haunting.
Yeah, page 84 for anybody reading along.
It's not like a scary book, but like, yeah, some of there's a gruesomeness that is a part of this book, and
that's what I said. I think some of these, if they were in color, would be like sickening to look at. So
maybe it's kind of the good thing then.
Yeah. To close out that scene, and I think is this your favorite scene in the book, Corey? The escape from Prometheus.
I think so. I mean, I think he draws cars really good, really well. He draws car good. He draws like the cars really well. And I mean, like, it's like, I think I mentioned this off air, but I've like read this book, like I started this book like 3 different times by accident. And it always clicks with me when I'm like, oh, it's like when they do the escape scene, because there's so much chaos that happens in the span of like 3 pages.
Yeah.
But yeah.
I particularly love my favorite moment in that is when I'm just gonna call it astral projection for lack of a better word. When Nina astral projects and like swerves the car so like the soldiers can see her, or I guess really specifically one soldier can see her.
Yeah.
And we find out after his death that that he has been claiming to have seen things before, so maybe he has the sight or something.
The Shining.
Yeah, and then she possesses him and kills Friedrich, which again, like, Friedrich is the main villain of this book in a lot of ways. He dies in the first third of the book.
Yeah,
it's just such a bold move, and you don't even really realize he's the big bad until the end. You don't realize that this whole awful series of events has been set in motion by this one guy.
Fucking Nazis.
Yeah, bad, right? Just bad dudes. Who would have thunk it? Not the Republicans.
That's why you guys come here, these hot, spicy takes.
Yeah, we're the only 2 guys brave enough to say that Nazis are bad. I love the moments. I love when we first start to get the flashbacks of Bobby's memories around page 124 when we first flash back to that first Thanksgiving. I did have a question for you, and I still don't know.
Shoot.
I don't know why. I don't really have an answer.
You don't know why you have a question for me.
No, I don't know the answer to this question. And the question is like, why is Bobby? For lack of a better, why is Bobby Monster Bobby? In just this one day, when he's flashing back to the 1940s. Thanksgiving 1940, we see Bobby on the page with his mother and father as the monster that he becomes after the Prometheus program. And then in other flashbacks, he's like regular Bobby. He's young Bobby.
I guess maybe it's just to kind of show like this is what he's directly referencing or like thinking about in those times. And I guess maybe the flashbacks aren't necessarily his flashbacks, because I think it's through his eyes what happened that day, but I think the mother ones is more of an accurate about what happened then, because we also do spend times with things that Bobby would have no idea about. I guess. I'm guessing.
Yeah, that makes sense. I do wonder if like I don't know. I wonder if it's mostly just like a visual flair or something, because especially the last page, and I should have referenced this, but I didn't. But when he turns back into his young self, his mother has been shot, his aunt and uncle have both been shot, and Tom, his father, is standing there at the stairs, pointing the gun at him when Jack comes in, right before Jack shoots him. When we see Jack's perspective of the shot, and maybe that's why, because it's Jack's perspective. Until I just said that, I didn't think about this. But it's no longer Monster Bobby. It's Child Bobby. But
not sure.
It's the one part where I like, even on second reread, I was hoping to garner reasoning behind it, because it felt like such a distinctive decision. That on this specific day, in these flashbacks, in Bobby's recollection of his life at home, he's a monster, but in no other day is he a monster. But yeah. I got a couple more quick ones. When we find out, and this is mostly like a really, I think, really well done callback on page 259. This is the tragic end to Thanksgiving, and Janet's sister-in-law, whose name is escaping me, her final words are, "Please spare the child," which we heard earlier. Janet heard when she picked up the Luger, is one of the few. So when Janet picks up the Luger earlier in the book, we hear her, she says that she's hearing a bunch of German voices, which I think we're led to presume are all those Nazis in Prometheus that Friedrich and Hans kill, that they betray and they shoot them all. I guess not necessarily. Voss, who's completely lost his mind at that point, is the one who kills some of them. But one of the things that she hears in English is "Please spare the child," and it's Janet's sister-in-law's last words before her death, suggesting that like this gun has like the spirits of the people it's killed in the future.
And then will kill. Yeah. What is up with the supernatural shit?
I kind of like that it's like not a big part of the book, but
yeah,
I am
I am a fan like when Stephen King does a similar thing where it's like this isn't the point of the book, but there's like a character here who has superpowers. It's just I think
The Shining is a like you said before. The Shining is a perfect example where like,
but it's just I'm just like what the fuck is like sometimes I'm just like what is happening? Like just give me a little bit, just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean I think, and I actually literally can't remember if we said this on the podcast already or if it was before we started recording.
Dude, man, everything's just I don't need. That's what I think about every day, man.
But the thing I really like about the fact that it's not really necessarily a big part of this book, like Elias and Nina and Elias's father, who also gets killed by Friedrich in Prometheus. Them and then this instance with the guns are kind of the only mystical parts, and then of course the whole Prometheus thing is like really science fiction, but I sort of like that it exists in this world where you could read this book as the forces of good versus the forces of evil in a very supernatural, like Lord of the Rings style way, where like this gun and the Nazis are literally this mystical force of evil, and the McFarlanes are fighting back on it with the good. Because the thing with the gun is fantasy. I mean, it's not even... It's one of the few fantasy elements in this book. But I just really love that because I was like, oh shit, this is the thing she heard 50 pages earlier. I just thought that was really well done flashback storytelling. And I think I have one more moment. Yes. This is mostly like enjoyment of like the Schadenfreude is Friedrich's failure is like the reason that Prometheus is such a shit show, and like the reason that Bobby becomes what he is, and like the reason it goes so badly is because like Friedrich's fucking lazy, and we find out he doesn't copy enough notes in time, and it's like the reveal that like, oh, the notes are already on fire. I like the ones that you were supposed to have copied. We're burning the originals. We're gonna take these. The plan was clearly to take copies to the Americans, sell all those copies, and then it turns out like Friedrich fucking dropped the ball. Because I think a lot of that, I didn't mention this in the themes, because I think it's a much smaller one, but I think a lot of a big theme of this book is ineptitude, and like how evil and incompetence are like hand-in-hand experiences, where all these people, not even just like evil people, but like a lot of the good people in this book, they fail because they fuck up royally. Yeah.
I mean, even the main sergeant character in the beginning, he was just like you're making a lot of stupid-ass decisions right now.
Yeah.
Wife made a lot of stupid ass decisions. There's a lot of people saying making some stupid ass decisions.
Well, even like the whole like, I mean, it's like it's played off as noble, but McFarlane's father, Elias McFarlane's father, dies because he like basically risks his life to save a Nazi, and it's like dumb plan, chief, bad idea. Yeah. It turns out that Nazi killed you because you're black. And then I just love that it comes back around that even Friedrich, who at this point in the book, we're getting close to the end, you've sort of pieced together that Friedrich has put all these things in motion, and you think he's this master planner and like this evil genius, and it turns out he's like a fuck up and a loser like the rest of them. Which is, I mean, that's what all Nazis are, fuck ups and losers. Again, hot takes on the next
heard it here first. The only voices who would tell you how it's real in late night podcasting.
Showtime,
call us. We won't break up and cost 50 people their jobs.
We could do a different Jesus Bro podcast on a different day.
When are we going to talk about Gray Man?
I have to watch it first. Any other moments or scenes you want to throw in there?
No, I think you covered them. I think you did a good job.
A couple minor ones, like I think the moment where we find out Jack's been dead for a while.
The Jack's been dead one was pretty. It's really hard to nail those. Like, you've been dead for like 5 minutes. Moments, and that was actually a pretty good one.
Yeah, I think it'd be more effective if it wasn't like 2 pages, like he died like not that long ago. Yeah. But yeah, I think it does really work.
I was confused. Like, oh, he drew him weird. Why is he here? Why is he like young? Oh, okay.
Right. And yeah, when you go back, because there, like you said, he's drawn younger, and he is slightly different than he was when he, and obviously his injuries have suddenly disappeared. There's a lot of really smart stuff going on that page. Windsor-Smith is like, turns out he's fucking good at this sort of thing.
Weirdly.
I got a couple lines we can go through, and then we can close out our discussion of monsters.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do a couple of my favorite ones. This is I already talked about this before, but on page 20, for those of you who are reading along, Friedrich says, many of my fellow scientists and fellow engineers emigrated to America following the war. Yes, I am from Vienna. Is like, I just love the parallel of like, he's not German, he's Austrian, which if any of you know your history, you'll know somebody else was also not German.
What are you talking
about? So I really like that scene. It's not like a beautifully written line, but I think it's really cool. It's really like a subtle foreshadowing in a way. It's not even really subtle, but it doesn't hit you over the head. I've also got page 38, when Elias is talking to Bess, and they are he says, everything past and future is all one, and when you realize that you're a part of it all, it's like, and he pauses and Bess says, heaven? And Elias responds, heaven? I think that's really, because it speaks to these two characters who are so different. It's actually kind of interesting that they're even married. I would love like a little bit of a prequel on their story. I know we didn't have time for that, but she's so connected to this the spirituality that he has no connection with, and this moment where he needs to be anchored, like he's like so lost. This is the moment where his breakdown is like really hit the nadir, and she offers him what she thinks is like this olive branch. It's like, is it heaven? And he can't even accept it. And then shortly after this, abandons his family to go save a little white boy he never should have sent to the
exactly
fucking hell in the first place. Elias, I think, is a very fascinating character.
He is. He's I think it's a very interesting character. I think it was because he's a frustrating character on so many things where it's just like, fuck you. Then he's just like, this is clearly nagging at you, and then like, wait, hold on, don't do that.
Yeah.
No.
I love that he's imperfect. I think, like I said, the fact that the only two people in this book that are nearly without sin, obviously he pointed out that she snaps and Janice snaps and hits her son at the end, but the only people that are nearly without sin are like these two characters that sort of exist in amber, but everybody else around them is genuinely human, which I think is just really good writing.
No, it is.
Books where the bad guy is all bad, although in this book the bad guys are all bad, but they're not really characters, but where the good guys are all good is just boring as shit, I think.
Yeah.
All right, I got one on page 54. This is one of the moments I was talking about with just Windsor-Smith manages to slip in some real comedy, talking about why the Friedrich, who's on his way to inspect the Prometheus program, why he might not be so happy with the results of Bobby's transformation. And one of our chuckle fuck privates says, is it his face? He's like, he says, it's not his face, fucking idiot. It's his schlong. It's like goddamn 16-inch trench mortar hanging there.
What an insane thing to have to sit down and write out.
I read it. I had to read it like twice. I was like, really, this very serious book that I was like, it's like, really? Okay. And we talked about this before. I think good art needs humor. Even the bleakest stories about World War II and Nazis, people made jokes. Like, people in the concentration camps were making jokes. If your story doesn't have humor in it, then you're not like, it doesn't exist in reality. Yeah. So I just think that it's also just like schlong's a funny word. What can I say?
Schlong is a funny word.
I'm a child.
It is a funny word.
Then I got Elias giving us the backstory of Friedrich. He committed murder and cannibalized his victims. And what did the army do about that best? They slapped a medal on him and sent him home like nothing ever happened, which in a lot of ways is, like we've talked about before, the thesis of this whole book. That like the military creates these monsters and then unleashes them on the world and then wipes their hands of the responsibility. Which I think is why Bobby's story is like the overarching literally they created a monster, unleashed it on the world, and then wiped their hands of the responsibility.
Yeah.
I got page 82. Harry, come, Major Roth. Did you at least not shit your trousers, which we've also talked about before, another funny moment where he's like interrogating these men about the awful stench that came out of the Prometheus experiment.
Like, was it so bad? Like, it's like, well, I don't want to talk about it, man.
And then when he like, it literally, he's like, apologize. He's like, yes, I'm sorry. I did actually shit my pants. it's such a weird interaction.
What a thing to say.
In one of the scenes that you were not a big fan of, but and I agree, it wasn't like super strong. This is when Father Reese is talking to the Major.
I mean, I didn't think it was like a bad scene. I just kind of thought it was just kind of like a bit of a head scratcher to me.
No, I agree. I'm with you on that. I just think this line was really great. Well, Father Reese says, "Short notice. Had I known you would declare war on Ohio, I would have vacationed elsewhere." Explaining to Major Roth how the fuck he's even at this war scene in Ohio. I do think that it is it's a rare character that sort of comes in and out of the book in that way, and I'm with you that I don't really. It seems like it's there to convince us more that Roth is like a dick, but I don't. Do we need more convincing at that point? So another one I have is on page 172, where we are really in the like the ends of when Tom is losing it really, and he's like got his gun and seems like he's gonna kill himself, but then Janet's in the room and like stops him, and Tom says, "Just to pop it in my own living room in front of my adoring wife," sarcastically. "Nah, not me. I'm a survivor. I put the clip back in. Feel free to use it anytime." And it's that last line that I think is really effective. Like,
yeah.
Is he saying like feel free to kill yourself anytime?
I kind of got that.
Kill me, or
I got the whole feel free to kill yourself
anytime.
anytime.
I think that's the implication. Yeah, but it's just
He should have shot his ass.
I mean, I never know what to say about these characters. Like, obviously, I don't like Tom, but I think that character is such an excellent villain. I mean, he's so loathsome in a way that is very reminiscent of real characters in other like, obviously I wasn't alive in the 1940s and 50s, but like my experience of 1940s and 50s media and like movies and books and stuff is like, this is what husbands were like, a lot of them just were like evil, awful, and treated their wives like property, and then they would say like, "Kill yourself with my Luger, bitch." It's like,
Jesus.
Yeah. I really like that. I got another close out on two more. My boy Jerry, near the end of the book on page 225, another moment of humor from Barry Windsor-Smith is this is when he's talking to Jack about like how he's thrown his career away for this woman. Says like tits out to there, which is a phrase I'd never really heard
I've
before.
never heard that one either. Yeah.
Didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, didn't want to hear it again.
Did not really enjoy, did not love that one.
But in the same conversation also says, if jerking off ain't working for you, take the Dallas transfer, but get in some serious begging of Janet Bailey before you skip in town, which is just like real dickhead shit to say. And I kind of
absolutely
just a great like
horrible people.
Yeah. I mean, there was a point in this book up until the end where Jack gets a very like a happy ending, where I thought the theme of this book was really going to be like, there are no good men. And all the men were degrees of of evil and inept, and even our hero Elias was like the onsetting incident is that he betrays this innocent boy and then deserts his family for that. It's like, but then of course we get Jack, who's like, I guess supposed to be good, but even himself is like very troubled and.
Yeah, because I mean, like he definitely should have followed up and have gotten like the fact that he had a gun unlicensed, and he's just like, okay,
yeah,
not gonna do anything about that. I'm like,
well,
no,
we didn't talk about that scene. That scene's fucking weird, where he shoots a gun basically at his child in public, and then there are no repercussions for it.
Yeah, it was weird. Why even include that scene, honestly?
Well, I think I mean,
well, I get why, especially when I like feed onto that guy's guilt in the very end. Yeah.
But also not to pay. Yeah, I mean that's true. There's like he could have done something. He should have done something then. But also not to paint this great country with a tainted brush. But I think in 1950s, a white dude probably could have got away with that if he wanted to.
Oh, absolutely. yeah. I know.
Speaking of shitty white men, closing out with I actually think my favorite quote of the book, because it's like a peek into like true evil in a way that is like, and again, like evil and stupidity and this like combination of Darth Vader and Three Stooges. That is the Nazi scene in the Prometheus headquarters when Friedrich is joking, but not really. Like the guy thinks he's joking, even though everything he's saying is like clearly very serious, that he's going to kill all of his comrades and like steal the plans for Prometheus and sell them to the Americans. And he says he's going to live in California, and I don't even remember this guy's name, not worth writing down. He gets shot in the head like next panel or something. But when Friedrich says, I'm going to go live in California, the guy's only response, after being told for like 3 pages that he's going to get killed by his friend now, like today.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm going to kill you right now. I'm going to steal all these plans. I'm going to sell them to the Americans. I'm going to go live in California. And the guy's only retort before dying, it's his last words in this entire book, are, there are Jews in California. And it's like, it's like ellipses, there are Jews in California, ellipses. It's like he's perplexed. Like, why would you want to go live where there are Jews? It's his only concern. He's been told he's going to get fucking killed now, like today. And he's like, but the Jews, sir.
But the Jews. So stupid.
I think the complete and utter buffoonery and just irredeemable evil of these characters, it's one of my favorite scenes in the book, is the flashback to the day before in Prometheus, before we see why all these guys died. Because it's like, there's you could have 2 different directors could have shot, if this was a movie, could have shot that scene. It could have been a like harrowing, like Scorsese style, like gritty dialogue back and forth. And then also, I can't even really think of who I'd want to direct it, but it could have been like a Hogan's Hero style ridiculous sitcom version of these stupid Nazis. Like literally their friend is like standing up and losing his mind, and they're still just like concerned about their own bullshit. And then of course he kills them all. Friend. None of these guys are friends with each other. I shouldn't use the word friend. But, yeah. Any other lines? I know I blazed through a lot of them, but any other lines that stuck out with you in this book?
Oh, nothing else really. I think you kind of covered most of it. I mean, to me, it was just definitely more of like the impactful moments than anything like that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I think this book, if you've made it an hour and 20-ish minutes into the podcast and you haven't read this book yet, I mean, go do that, please. But also, I just think this book is just like fucking great, really well written. I agree. Yeah, no. One more very minor question that I wanted to ask you earlier, but I just realized, just caught it in my notes. And tell me if I'm reading too much into this, if I'm being crazy or not. There are weird moments where he replaces C's with K's in the book, like the word Africa is with a K, and then click and clack every time it's like the onomatopoeic is on the page, it's with 2 K's. No. Am I reading too much into that, or is it like a KKK thing? Is it like a reference? Because why the fuck else would you spell Africa with a K? I'd never seen it before. It's when Friedrich says it.
Well, it's like when a racist says it. That's when you know. Like you can.
Well, it's the only time Africa's even mentioned in the book. is that one time.
I'm not, no, honestly, I'm not sure. I don't know if you might be reading too much into it, but I'm not sure, honestly.
Yeah, I don't know. I think it might just be, I probably am reading too much into it, but I found it very intentional and strange. But I don't know. Anything else to say about this? I think we both agree, like, masterpiece, right? Let me not put words in your mouth. You think this is
No, I think it is a masterpiece. I think it's very clearly, I can see how this is like someone's life's work. It does everything that you want to do with a graphic novel like this. It's a great book, and if you guys listen to this entire thing and not read it, I highly encourage you guys to go check it out.
Yeah. And this is like
sit down, take your time with it.
Now, yeah. So I don't think the plot and all this that we haven't spoiled your experience of reading it.
No.
A really special read.
Especially, it's a good comic where you can just tell the story, but also it's the experience that makes it worth it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, once again, a reminder: if you have not already, go rate us 5 stars on all your preferred podcast platforms. If you are watching the YouTube video, like and subscribe. Don't forget. If you're not watching the YouTube video, the link is in the description. Go over there, throw us a subscribe, maybe click the bell, all that good stuff. You can find us at Next Time On Pod on our social media platforms, mostly Twitter and Instagram. I say all every time, but it's actually just Twitter and Instagram. I mean, I'm sure there's like an at Next Time On Pod Google Plus floating around. Does that exist anymore?
I think Google Plus is gone.
Okay, well then never mind. Just Twitter and Instagram. And then, of course, last but not least, nexttimeon.net is where all of our archived writing, all of our podcasts, all that good stuff is. I think, don't hold me to this because I was about to get quite busy, but I'm going to try to write up some Emmy stuff because the Emmy nominations were typically bullshit this year. And I'm going to be mad about it in writing, and Corey won't let me do a 7-hour pod, so I'll figure something out. And, of course, don't watch Ghost Rider, but we will be talking about Ghost Rider. That's coming up soon. Anything else for the people, Corey?
If you guys know any good job opportunities, please hit me up. Your boy's unemployed.
Yeah, fucked week from the boys at Warner Brothers, I have to say.
Soliciting jobs through my podcast. This is my current level, everybody. I'm doing great.
We'll figure something out. I'm sure of it. It'll all work out in the end. Corey's less sure about it than I am, but I am sure. All right. Anything else for the people?
No, nothing else for the people. I hope everyone has a good day or whatever you're fucking doing.
All right, we'll see you guys next time. I'm Che.
I'm Corey.
Bye.
Bye.